Welcome to the Arlington Street Church podcast. Founded in 1729, Arlington Street continues today as a gathering place for progressive people of faith in the greater Boston area and beyond. We are located at the corner of Arlington and Boylston Streets, across from the Public Garden in Boston, Massachusetts. Please visit ascboston.org for more information about this historic Unitarian Universalist congregation. Arlington Street Church, gathered in love and service for justice and peace.
Our reading this morning is from John O'Donohue, a Celtic poet and spiritual teacher. For the Traveler. Every time you leave home, another road takes you into a world you were never in. New strangers on other paths await. New places that have never seen you will startle a little at your entry. Old places that knew you well will pretend nothing changed since your last visit. When you travel, you will find yourself alone in a different way. More attentive now to the self you bring along. The more subtle eye watching you abroad, and how what meets you touches that part of the heart that lies low at home. How you unexpectedly attune to the timbre of some voice, opening in conversation you want to take into where your longing has pressed hard enough inward on some unsaid dark to create a crystal of insight you could not have known you needed to illuminate your way. John O'Donohue makes it sound so lovely, doesn't he? To travel to an unknown place, physical or spiritual, and encounter the limits of ourselves, to be enlightened. The threshold encounters we're talking about all this month in worship always contain a promise of deeper wisdom and compassion. And yet, many of us arrive with more fears and more yearnings than we realize. Our stories to match the fears easily take a prominent place in our memories, make our tender hearts shy. Stories of places where we knew connection may have been possible but had no idea how to make it, or where connection was attempted and spurned. Those uncomfortable memories live alongside our visions of beloved community, the holy places we can be where all creeds and colors are welcome, that welcome table where we all partake and share wisdom across all those differences. We want to feel ourselves enriched, enhanced, grown in our ability to hold our oneness and our distinctions in a loving tension. But our fears and our hesitations constantly challenge those hopes. They are a sobering reminder that this work might not be easy. The awkward tension of a threshold moment is sometimes not just messy or awkward, it is painful. I carry lots of those stories of tension myself. And one that I want to share with you this morning lived with me as a deep knot in my belly for decades. When I was about to begin 7th grade, my family moved to a suburb of Columbus, Ohio, where I made what I thought, as only a 12-year-old can, that I had made the best friends I would ever make in my life. The best of those best friends was a girl named Robin. We were tight. So when my family then moved just 18 months later in the middle of my 8th grade year, I was devastated. How in the world could I make such good friends again, ever? I aggressively kept in touch, writing letters back and forth as fervently as we would write notes in class before. Now, this was before email or texting or Snapchat, so you can imagine the wait for a response was excruciating. Robin then moved to San Diego a couple years later, and as luck would have it, the summer after we both turned 15, my family was going on a road trip through Southern California. How great it would be to see each other! We made the arrangements, we two teenagers, and I called her from the place where we were camping with family friends the 2 nights before arriving in San Diego. "I can't wait to see you," she squealed. "You'll have to spend the night, of course." "Let me check with my parents," I said. "I don't know what our plans are." "Mom, Dad, Robin has invited us to stay over in San Diego. Can we please?" My not normally indulgent parents knew how much I missed my friend, and they reluctantly agreed. So off we went to San Diego. We pulled up in front of what to us looked like a huge modern house in a manicured neighborhood. Robin and I greeted each other on the front walk, and I told her my family was just taking a minute to get out of the car. She looked at me, puzzled, and said, "They're getting out of the car?" "I invited you to stay over," she said. "Well, let me ask my mom if everyone can come." I was utterly embarrassed. Had no idea how I could have misunderstood what to me seemed like a clear invitation. I was traveling with my family. An invitation to you had to be plural or it didn't make any sense. Where would they stay? Robin's parents were quite put out by the request. They explained to my father that they only had 3 bedrooms in the house for the 3 of them. My father, further embarrassing me, asked if they could just put their sleeping bags out on the floor in the living room. Shock and horror were mirrored in my parents' and Robin's parents' faces. That too was vetoed. Directions to the nearest motel were given, an expense I knew wasn't in my parents' budget for the trip. And they let me stay, but the knot in my stomach as I did was enormous. I felt selfish, a traitor to my family for a friendship I was now less certain of than ever. The next day, my parents picked me up, my mother fuming in the front seat, while my sisters excitedly told me the story of how nice that motel was. I was old enough to know that meant there must have been a financial sacrifice. After what felt like forever, my father simply said, "I hope you know, our people always, always make room for guests." Later, I would overhear my parents arguing over the reasons for what they perceived to be the rude behavior. My Iranian father said it was the selfishness of Americans that explained it all. For my American mother, who was raised working class, it was their wealth that explained their lack of hospitality. For me, it was that I should have known better than to assume anything. Further evidence that my culturally strange and financially strapped family would always be misfits. I felt sure I would never get it right. Felt like a complete fool. Now, as a parent of a teenager and a college student living in the suburbs, I know that I too would be greatly put out by a request that a whole family stay at a moment's notice. I know that internal sigh of exhaustion at the thought of having to be on for people in my own home, how much it takes to host even the most familiar of friends. It took decades for me to arrive at the lesson, but what I've learned from that experience as a teenager, from turning over and over my own shame, my regret, my anger at myself and my parents and my friend and her parents, is the wish for all of us to have been able to pause in our moment of judgment of ourselves and of each other. My parents didn't choose that awkward spot, and likely their own shame ramped up their judgment. I think it's safe to say the same was happening for Robin's parents. And we 2 teens in the middle, once so close we couldn't imagine what it could be to be parted, realized that there were far more differences between us and how we saw the world than we ever would have imagined. We arrive at our encounters with strangers, or of being the stranger, wishing to be seen fully, to be known for all of our good intentions, our desire to connect, and yet we hold so many misgivings born of hard experience, real experience, and those scars cannot be ignored. Yet there's another truth at work alongside them, within them. John O'Donohue's poem continues, "When you travel, a new silence goes with you, and if you listen, you will hear what your heart would love to say." Sometimes the toughest encounters bring us closer to what our heart would love to say in ways that staying in our comfort zone just doesn't. In our tender moments when we feel ourselves beyond the reach of what we knew, if we can forgive ourselves for not knowing, if we can swim past the ego's terrain of embarrassment, we land at that longing, our true wish. If you would have asked my 15-year-old self, I would have said my true wish was to feel that my family fit in, to feel welcome and known and loved, for my family to see the value of my friendship, and for my friendship to be so strong we would never misunderstand one another. I also wanted our family not to be seen as cheap and presumptuous, and Robin's family not to be considered stingy, and for us to stay in that bond of friendship that seemed unbreakable forever. Because that wish was clearly not going to come true, I tucked away the sharp edges of that memory, unable to feel anything but regret. But now, I would say my true wish was to know that whatever our mistakes, we are all held in a love greater than our fear, than our pain. A love that defies shame by inviting us to learn, that calls us toward growth, especially in the tough moments. A few years ago, Robin found me on social media, and we began a light correspondence. After a few superficial back and forths to catch up on the bigger contours of our lives, we sent messages almost at the same time, referring to that last time we had seen each other in person. She said her mother remembers me by it. I said, that didn't sound like the best thing to be remembered by. And she said, it was such a hard time for all of us. I think we all wish it had been different. That grace, the simplicity and the truth of it, brought me to tears right at my keyboard. It took years to get to it. I hadn't had the courage to seek it out deliberately, but it was there. It was always there. We are always held in an embrace invisible and infinite, an endless font of love that reaches for our flourishing. My prayer for us is that in the tough moments, we can remind ourselves of its truth. That when we are ready, we can find our companions in the challenging encounters and offer and receive deeper understanding. My story this morning took decades and had a coda that was kind of by chance. And I'm working on shortening the arc between the painful moments and reconnecting. And I'm pretty sure some of you are already better at it than I am. It's one of the benefits of being in congregational life, truly, to be in the company of people who are taking their spiritual lives seriously, modeling for each other what most of us can't do all the time, but a lot of us can do some of the time. The little moments of connection can strengthen us for the bigger, more fraught ones. Those little moments, as small and fleeting as the joy of a genuine smile of thanks from a person who got change at your car window, or as profoundly humbling as the experience of being hosted generously in international travel by people who live for a month on what you spend in a day. It can be the surprise of the person ahead of you paying for your coffee, or the person who stands at a busy subway entrance and waits for you, holding the door so you can catch your train. If we make it our habit to pay attention to the small moments, our hearts and our spirits are stronger for the big ones. a journey can become a sacred thing. Make sure before you go to take the time to bless your going forth, writes John O'Donohue, to free your heart of ballast so that the compass of your soul might direct you toward the territories of the Spirit, where you will discover more of your hidden life and the urgencies that deserve to claim you. True hospitality always wells up from the roots of our beings and has to be grounded very literally in our spirit's need for connection. If we let ourselves be held firm in our soul's foundation, that need to reach out and to bring in, to discover the love that's our common source and our destination, not in sentimental platitudes, but in active experience of reaching past fear and self-doubt, of risking the awkward and uncomfortable for the sake of an experience of grace. All week, we have opportunities in our lives apart from one another to practice bringing in the wonder, to let the vulnerable places in our souls to take the risk of connection, discover something that's true and precious and real, and offer it to each other when we gather. In the name of love, in the name of connection, in the name of growth and goodness, let us make our humble offerings to each other, and let us learn more of ourselves as we do, again and again and again. Amen. Friends, will you join me in prayer? Spirit of life, source of love, our troubled hearts need some rest. We are looking for the well-worn and comfortable rooms where we know we will be fed without question, where our thirst for companionship will be satisfied no matter where we have been, regardless of where we plan to go. We lift our hearts in gratitude for each and every moment we have been welcomed at a crowded table, where everyone's a little broken and everyone belongs. Let us hold that space in our hearts and seek out that warm and spacious place, that well of unconditional love in our moments of fear and unknowing. May we find ways to free our hearts of ballast, to bless our going forth, to become aware of the selves we bring along so that we can be the hosts for others, vessels of grace and compassion designed for healing and hope in a world whose need is deep. In the name of all that is holy, we lift up this prayer. Amen.
Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. For your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. Your divine, my divine. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. For your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. Your divine, my divine.
Please visit ascboston.org for more information about this historic Unitarian Universalist congregation. Arlington Street Church, gathered in love and service for justice and peace.